I was the one with that. There you go.
Hi, everyone. It's Ravi, the Junior Explorer, and I'm here with Killian Charles, President and CEO of Brunswick Exploration, to discuss their recent drill results. Welcome back, Killian.
Pleasure to be here. Happy holidays, by the
Happy
way.
holidays. We might have to change your name to Santa because Santa Charles just delivered some early Christmas presents.
That's what we strive to do. Lots more, and there'll be lots more in the new year as well.
Excellent. Now, before we get into the details of these fantastic drill results coming from Mirage, I like to touch on a couple of items I think are important. So, one is the obviously the initial drill program, timing of assays, and the importance of setting up the shop there. So, let's talk the purpose of the drill program. Now, I think there are a lot of retail investors that had this kind of notion or expectations that Brunswick would be drilling these very deep 300-meter holes, and if they don't pull out a Corvette discovery of the first couple holes is a complete failure. And in my opinion, phase one was all about exploratory drilling. This was a helicopter assisted program, so it came with some limitations. Can you explain why this initial drill program, it was more important to test the continuity and widths of the spodumene bearing pegmatites versus trying to chase these things as deep as possible?
Oh, absolutely. Look, when you come into a swarm like we see at Mirage, there's a lot of different targets. And so it's kind of hard to be able to pick one right off the bat and say, oh, yes, this is the best one to go ahead and drill. We wanted to at least conceptually know what we're looking at. Obviously, when you're looking at surface, you have an idea of the orientation and the way that it's dipping. But drilling is the true way for us to understand these bodies, right? So that's why we're like, okay, we need to just look at the surface here, do exploratory drilling, understand which way they're oriented, try to collect as much geological information so that we can better expand and plan the next set of programs. And already from this first phase, we have made significant discoveries. When I think about the press release we put out yesterday, this MR4 dike in the South Zone, it's now 600 meters of continuous high grade 2+%. That's one of the highest grade dikes across all of Canada. Looking back to the North Zone, again, it's just to understand the size of the body. And many of these areas, we were, I don't want to say limited, but we were just trying to rapidly go through as many of these targets. The North Zone, 25 meters at over 2.5%. There's 4 holes in it, only 2 truly count because we were trying to understand the way these things strike and dip. And so there's so much left to do. We still have another, I'd say half a dozen outcrops to go drill that remain undrilled at this time. We've made blind discoveries. That really sort of drives into the type of work that we've done with this initial 5,000 meters. It was merely to set the stage. It's about building a foundation, right? We're not trying to build the house right now. We're just building the foundation with this drilling. And let me tell you, it's a hell of a foundation to start off with.
Awesome. So let's talk about the assays. So, from what I can gauge, this past summer fall, there are only a handful of lithium juniors drilling in the James Bay. However, that did not mean that everything was clear sailing at the labs. I understand there may have been a few things out of control regarding assays. Can you talk about the various touch points as it relates to the drill core sample and its timeline? As well, can you discuss the work done when assays come back before the results can actually be released?
Yeah, so look, you have to understand that we're dealing with a location that is in Northern Quebec, and this is something that'll be faced by whether it's Winsome, whether it's Corvette, where, we will do the drilling on location. In this case, we had 1 drill rig. So sequentially accrue a certain amount of holes. They get first quick log, so a cursory glance. With this picture right here will show, that core more than likely being quick log. Then once we have a certain amount of core set up, probably a few holes, we will put them on a truck, send them down to Val d'Or, where they're actually logged, detailed analysis of the rock, and the selection of what will be sent to assay. The core is split in half, and then one half is kept. The other half is sent to the lab. And then once we receive those assays after a few weeks, we'll get obviously a couple of holes at a time. Once we receive a number of holes, then we're in a position to press release it. We're not going to press release one hole, just like we're not going to wait for all of them to come in. It's a little bit of a judgment call. Once we receive about a quarter to a third of the program in, we feel confident that now there's something to talk about. There's a story to shape up there, and there's enough critical information to release to the market. But it's important to realize that all of these steps take time. We have to drill them, so that will take a few weeks to accrue enough holes to send them down. Then they get sent down, then they get logged. That takes maybe 1 or 2 weeks. They get logged and cut. Then they get sent to the lab. That's another 3 weeks, and then we got to receive them. So you start adding all of these things up, and it takes time. And that's why for us, when you're starting off with a program Mirage, that's how any company would work. All right, that's how Corvette started. That's how any program in the mining industry will work. But as you start to define something significant, something substantial, something that has the potential of being a mine, you start to simplify that process. And that's where we are right now at Mirage. We've decided, okay, we've done great work, but let's shorten that time frame. The logging, we will build our own camp, so that the logging can happen directly on site. So now one part of the chain happens much faster. That means what gets sent down is a little bit more limited. Whether we cut it on site or down in Val-d'Or doesn't really make a huge difference, because to be quite honest, the lab is in Val-d'Or there. And it just allows us to simplify that chain of custody to the lab and get the results out faster. Obviously, once we're in the winter next year, and we have not only our own camp, but 2 drill rigs. Let's go back to that statement. If I want to wait till I have 8 or 10 holes, well, normally if it was this fall, it would have taken me probably 2 or 3 weeks to accrue those 8 holes. With 2 drill rigs, well, I'm doing it twice as fast. So now I'm going to have a much higher density of drill holes. That means it's faster sending things to the lab, and therefore it's also faster to receive them. So net, I think especially going into next year, we'll have a much more continuous and faster set of results. Market won't have to wait as long to start receiving assays, because we've improved the logistic, and obviously have more rigs working for us.
Awesome. When we talked at the Red Cloud event, you mentioned that it was very important to get the camp set up before the winter set in. Phase 2 drilling is going to come on the heels of the final results. Can you talk about some of the advantages of having camp on site, and how would it help with things like core logging, as you mentioned, turnaround times, lower cost to drill, and any other efficiencies you might gain by having a camp on site?
Look, you hit it right there with that term. It's about efficiency, right? The reason why you build a camp, especially now that we have 2 rigs, it's to simplify the overall process and remove areas that end up being pinch points, logistical constraints that just slow everything down. Having a camp more than anything else means that we're in control. If we're running out of the outfitter at the Mirage camp, which a lot of people are, then if they run out of room, or if we need more room, we might be out of luck. And so we might be constrained in the type of work that we can do. Having our own camp allows us to circumvent that. Having our own camp allows us to, as you mentioned, do the logging directly on site. Again, simplify, remove logistical constraint. And so it was very important for us, as we saw and as we continue to see the potential at Mirage, and knowing that we want to expand from 1 to 2 to 3, hopefully all the way up to 5, and who knows after that, drill rigs, it's really important that we are set up to do that work. There's a lot of companies that sort of, they choke a little bit on that transition, right? Doing prospecting, doing simple, small drill programs, it's easy. Well, it's relatively easy in the industry. But as the program evolves, as this takes on a life of its own, it's really important to have a strong control in terms of what's happening. That's why we hired Simon Hébert to join us, to take charge of Mirage. He comes in as VP Development, specifically for the time being, with the mandate of advancing Mirage, to really focus on that particular asset, again, to ensure that the ball is not dropped and that we don't end up in a situation where, gee whiz, we kind of missed the window on that, and now it's going to take us an extra 2 months before we can do a third drill rig or expand this particular program, and now we have, you know, unexpected constraints. We lower that risk by having somebody dedicated to that project. And it, again, speaks to the confidence of what we see at Mirage and where we believe Mirage is going to be in 6, 12, 18 months time.
Great. So now that we got that out of the way, I'd like to turn our attention to the results. And yesterday, Brunswick Exploration extends strike length of MR4, high-grade mineralization to 600 meters at Mirage. And I think you guys are being a little modest in the headline, but let's talk about some of the highlights from this batch of assays. Highest grade intercepted to date at Mirage, 3.28% lithium oxide over 10.6 meters. Shallow intercept of 2.92%. High grade plus 2% mineralization along the entire strike length drilled to date. And let's talk about these impressive results there. Can you talk about the this contiguous high grade mineralization along MR4 in the South Zone?
Yeah, look, it's something that really impressed us as we were drilling MR4. We just kept seeing more and more high grade. Again, this is all ultra shallow mineralization, no more than 100 meters down vertical. And to see such grade is actually kind of rare. You will see sporadically good mineralization in other projects elsewhere across Canada, but it'll be a subzone. And it'll be discontinuous. It'll be, oh yeah, here over 150 meters, I have, you know, 2+% and I got good grades. What we have here is something that is almost every single hole, boom, 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 over the entire strike length. That is 2+% continuously over, you know, that rough, say, call it 10 to 15 meter true thickness. It is an astounding discovery to have. It's just, you know, extra gravy. Again, MR4 is but one dike across a multitude, across an entire swarm. And to find such high grade mineralization, it really excites me. It goes back to, and it speaks to the fact that we're dealing with a very unique system at Mirage, right? It is well mineralized. The fluids that were coursing through here were clearly very, very much enriched in lithium. And, you know, it's hard to find other assets, to be quite frank, anywhere in the world that has such contiguous high-grade mineralization. So, you know, it again goes back to that 5,000 meters. Geez, we were plugging the holes here, 150 meters stepped out. That's pretty ballsy. You know, that's a big jump to be doing on every single hole to say, okay, well, I hope I'm going to hit it 150 meters away. Most companies would jump, you know, call it 50, maybe 75 meters away and cross their fingers. Here we're going for gusto. It's like 125, 150 meters every time. Boom, it's there. Boom, it's there. And, you know, it's still open to the northeast. It's obviously open at depth. We're going to come back. We're going to do more work. That 15,000 meter, next 15,000 meters is going to be about demonstrating, you know, just how big these things can get. But again, to see such high grade, it's fantastic. And what also excites me is that it's going to speak to the metallurgy as well. Mm-hmm. A strong signal that metallurgy is going to be good. If you go back, you had I can't say from which hole that the core was from, glancing at the picture you shared there, but you can see coarse spodumene minerals. And that's something that is very, very unique, or not, I wouldn't say unique, but it's very important to see in any real deposit. All right, when you have such coarse spodumene crystals, you know that the recoveries are going to be a lot simpler than many other projects. You can potentially do DMS, dense media separation, which is the cheapest, best way to process spodumene and make a spodumene concentrate. So, you know, we're going to do our metallurgical work. but we're quite confident based on what we're seeing that that's what's going to hold up here.
And two of the pegmatites exhibit high-grade mineralization with very coarse pale gray, strongly fluorescent spodumene crystals. If first I'd like to touch about on this 3.28% over 10.6. If I do the quick math, that works out to about 19 to 20 grams per ton gold. Now, who wouldn't want high-grade mineralization front to back over 600 meters?
Yeah, right at surface.
Right at surface.
Right at surface. And as you can see there, you know, there's still so much left to do, so much more potential. You know, on this particular section there, it even seems to be widening a little bit as we go down, but it's definitely staying consistent. The grade is really good. And you mentioned a term there, and UV fluorescence. And this is something we see across the entirety of Mirage, just like the coarse, there you go, that's a nice picture right there. Just like the coarse nature of the mineralization. So you can see on this picture, everything that is glowing that sort of orangey color, that is spodumene. So you can see it's big spodumene crystals. But there's something else that happens with when you're dealing with UV light. Spodumene will not, or will poorly react to UV light when it is enriched in iron. All right. And the iron will actually suppress the fluorescence. So again, we have to do our detailed metallurgical work, but the fact that we are seeing such fluorescent spodumene allows us to infer that we might be dealing with a potentially clean, low iron concentrate. Again, the type of concentrate that you want to bring to the market. So coarse nature of the mineralization potentially indicates that we can go ahead and do efficient, cheap recoveries. And on top of that, looking at that UV fluorescence leads us to indicate that potentially we might be dealing with a clean concentrate. So, you know, to have grade, to have metallurgy, to have quality, those are all the things that any geo, any mining company would be desperate to find in a singular project. And that's what we see in Mirage. So it really excites me for the future here.
And I'd like to rewind to the results from December 4th, as I believe they're important for the next round of drilling. On December 4th, Brunswick exploration intersects significant spodumene mineralization in a dike swarm at Mirage. And a couple of the highlights: bonanza grades 2.57% over 25.8 meters. Thick intercept in the central zone, 50.6 meters at 1.06% lithium oxide. And only 60% of the pegmatite outcrops had been drilled to date. Let's talk about the north zone first. One dike, MR1, is high grade, and both these dikes remain open in all directions. We have some spodumene pegmatite outcrops just located 1 kilometer east. There's a few questions in here. It's pretty loaded. What's the plan for the north zone? How do you kind of approach going back to MR1 while still exploring these untested outcrops that are 1 and 3 kilometers away? Is there kind of a balance, you know, when it comes to this kind of drilling?
Look, it's the best problem in the world to have. You know, I relish these types of questions because fundamentally it implies that we have a target-rich environment, right? That's why we're moving to 2 drill rigs. That's why we want to expand the program, because there's still so much left to do. So yeah, we will go back to MR1. We will drill many of these new outcrops. We are only a third in release, or a 2/3 by now in terms of releasing assays. You know, in that first press release, we wrote bonanza for 2.57. Well, look at that. We keep finding more bonanza, if you will, all across the south dike. There's 4 holes in the north zone. And of that, there's only really 2 that truly tested the zone. Because again, this goes back to the drilling you're going to do, right? You need to understand which way it's oriented, which way it's dipping. And so there's going to be what we call scissor holes. You know, these are holes that come in 2 different directions. And that allows us to identify the way that it's sort of plunging, right? And that's why when I say there's 4 holes in there, well, 2 of those holes were to test the dip. put them up, they're in the wrong way. We got to flip it around, right? Flip the drill rig around. So that's why there's still so much left to do. It's absolutely open, both obviously at depth. You can see there we barely go 50 meters down. 50 meters, that's nothing. 25 meters of intercepts.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be significant more work done there. There's going to be significant more work done in the central zone. Again, we're finding a very, very thick pegmatite. It is absolutely open to the southwest in that area. We're going to keep going it. You can see we've done some drilling to the northeast in one outcrop. I can't wait to put out those assays around there. There's a lot of fun things to be happening across this entire project. And it goes back to that term. It's a dike swarm, right? Mm-hmm. It's a multitude of targets in a very tight area. We're talking about roughly 2 by 2 kilometers of, just spodumene after spodumene after spodumene bearing dikes. We've even made blind discoveries, right? In the first press release, not a lot of people caught that, but we actually made discoveries of, spodumene where we didn't expect to find anything. So we're now at a point where like, well, geez, are we actually going to have to start just poking wild blind holes even beyond the existing outcrops that remain undrilled to have a full picture of what we're doing here? It's, again, something that is very exciting, and it is the best problem to have for any company. It's like, oh no, I have too many targets. It's like, that's not really a problem. We kind of joke around here and say that's a Hollywood problem. So I'm more than happy to have a Hollywood problem here at Mirage.
Let's, you mentioned about the central zone. Let's move over there, because this zone intrigued me the most. Multiple holes with thickness in excess of 40 meters, grading, averaging 1% lithium oxide. The pegmatites seem to widen at depth. Now, we only have a few holes in the central zone, or at least those results. But can you walk us through what you're seeing at MR3? And you mentioned there was a hole that's we're calling 3A. Would you call that a non-exposed subparallel dike, or what's kind of the rationale on that particular hole?
Exactly. So MR3A, we're just starting off. So this, I don't want to say these dikes are, terminology might change, but we were not expecting to hit a dike there. All right. We started off and like, well, okay, wait, all of a sudden we're in a pegmatite. That doesn't make a lot of sense. There's nothing at surface that indicated that we would have a pegmatite there. So that's what I mentioned. It was a blind. It truly was a blind discovery for us. And it speaks to the entire potential. There's more at Mirage than what we even see at surface, right? So that's why it goes back to the sense of we need to do a significant amount of drilling. We even beyond what we know, we are going to be making a significant amount of new discoveries, even beyond the outcrop. So when we say, hey, look, we still have all these outcrops left to drill, and we will drill them. Once we've drilled them, that doesn't mean the potential is done, because we're finding new ones in our drilling. That's what gets me very, very excited. Now in the central zone, MR3, which we've released to date, shows exactly that. It shows a very thick 40 to 50 meter pegmatite. Again, very shallow drilling. It's absolutely open. And this is, again, speaks to building tons, building grade. We have sort of everything happening at once at Mirage. We have high grade mineralization. We have nice big areas. To get a 50 meter wide peg, that's pretty rare. And to do that in the first 5,000 meters of drilling, that's simply astounding. Again, hats off to the team to be making discoveries at such a rapid pace with such a limited program. That's why I'm so excited to see what 15,000 meters is going to give me. So I tell people, at the end of the day, 5,000 meters doesn't even get you an indication of what we've done. And we've
just scratching the surface. Yeah.
Scratching the surface. And then what is 15 going to tell us? What is 25 going to tell us? What is 50,000 meters going to tell us? Mm-hmm. We're just at that entry point right now.
And before we move on, so hole 35 and 36 seem to have drilled blind. 35 was drilled beside a couple of small boulders. First off, someone had balls of steel to drill holes that weren't even near any outcrops. What have you learned so far from what I'm assuming you're going to call MR6? That's down here, 35 and 36.
Yeah, so look, MR6 there, it's a major system. You know, we're seeing a lot of pegmatites. You can see in that hole 36. It's just there's a true indication of a swarm. So something different again is happening there, right? As the other ones, you'd have these big contiguous bodies, single pegmatite. Here we're just seeing, just as you can see right there, just a multitude of pegmatites. Do they all connect? What's happening there? To your point, it's an absolutely blind drill there. We decided, look, we were approaching the end of the program. We felt pretty confident that there's significant discoveries to be made. So we kind of went for it. And again, when you're in a system that is well mineralized, that has a lot of potential, it's not hard to make discoveries. And that's exactly what we did with those two holes. I can't wait to talk about some of what you write here as, I believe, MR5. Can't wait to talk about that one in the new year. We're going to be doing a lot of, again, so many fun things at Mirage. We're still just starting. 2/3 of the way into releasing assays at this program. Significant discoveries already announced today. More to come, and then, you know, we start going into 50,000 meters of drilling, irrespective of everything else we have inside Brunswick, Elron, Anais, all that. It's fun, honestly. I'm really excited for next year.
So let's talk this beautiful Boulder Train. Seems like Brunswick has not solved the secret to the caramel bar as it relates to this 3-kilometer Boulder Train in the south. But it must be encouraging for the team to have drilled a number of blind holes and hit spodumene. Are there any learnings that may assist you in how and where to drill this Boulder Train going forward?
Look, when you're dealing with an environment like this, with this Boulder Train, you know, I'm a big believer in the KISS mentality. Keep it simple, stupid, right? We've learned, don't get me wrong, but ultimately it's going to be what we term wildcat drilling. It's going to be offensive holes across the entire area, and we'll just keep it very nice and simple, very nice and controlled, and see what it gives us. Obviously, we're in an area, an environment that has a multitude of pegmatites. Some of these blocks are very, very large. We have, you know, a significant amount of faith that this could lead to something. But even if it weren't, it wouldn't make any other difference. We still have so much within that core zone. We have another outcrop that's 3 kilometers to the north that everyone keeps forgetting about. You know, we're dealing with a major environment. Don't get me wrong. This Boulder Train is huge. We are absolutely going to be drilling it, but it's just an extra cherry on the sundae that is now, you know, covered in cherries. It's got like 15 different cherries on it right now. So no, look, we're going to be drilling it. We're super pumped to go after it. And we absolutely will. We absolutely will. We're going to, now it's a question of, I don't want to say it's not really a question of logistics, but prioritizing. We may not get to it immediately in the start of the year, but we will get it pretty damn quickly. It's just that there's so many other targets as well.
Would you ever consider stripping as a tool to try and expose more pegmatites down there?
It's something that we might consider, but indication tells us that there's probably too much overburden. Stripping is fine when it's like 1 to, let's say, 5, at most 10 meters, but that's really, really, really pushing it. Here we might be 10 meters plus, which is fine, but for stripping, maybe not the best. So there are other targets we would consider stripping before. Here, I'm not so sure that it would bring us anything. And to be quite honest, to go through the effort to strip, well, why not just drill it? You know, stripping, I'd have to wait till the summer, and I'd have to bring equipment to do it here efficiently. Geez, it feels like it's so much easier to just put a rig on it and pop a hole and, you know, prove it that way than more than anything else.
Excellent. And In a previous interview, you mentioned that you may have caught a tiger by the tail. However, I think you may have caught something much larger. Brunswick may have caught a titan by the tail, and it goes by the name of Godzilla. Now, I'd like to talk size and scale. In September, Patriot Battery Metals delivered their maiden resource estimate of 109.2 million tons at 1.42% lithium oxide, with about 53,000 meters of drilling. And Winsome recently delivered an MRE of 59 million tons at 1.12%, based on 27,600 meters. By the time phase 2 drilling is complete, Brunswick would have drilled a minimum of 20,000 meters. Could it be plausible to deliver an MRE with only 20 kilometers of drilling? And do you have a set criteria that will determine when is the right time to release a maiden resource?
Look, once you start playing into the resource sort of game, you sort of put a clear definition in terms of what you're trying to do. We want to make sure that what we have here can support something that is of size, right? So whether it's 20, 25, 50,000 meters of drilling, my personal view, just for everyone's benefit, people need to understand Patriot is an absolutely world-class asset. I will throw all the roses at their feet. It is an astounding discovery, and I think one that benefits the entire industry and demonstrates the potential of Mirage. I won't be surprised, given a few years, it's going to be like 250 million tons over there. That's for Corvette. For Mirage, we got to put our time into it. I'm hopeful that we can define something that's almost as good as that, but I'm running my own race. When I look at other world-class deposits in the world, whether it's Kathleen Valley, that's Linestown, which had the bid from Albemarle, well, you know what? It's a dike swarm, just like Mirage. When I look at Pilbara Minerals, all right, when I look at that asset over there, which grew into a $14 billion company, well, wouldn't you know, it's a dike swarm, just like at Mirage. When I look at Lithium in Ghana, which is run alongside, I believe it's Xinjiang Mining, or anyway, one of the Chinese company. Well, wouldn't you know, it's a dike swarm, just like Mirage. So when I start to look at all of these world-class asset, 150 million ton deposits everywhere, they look very, very similar to what we're starting to uncover at Mirage. What they have, more drilling. So I got to go ahead and run my own race and do the drilling and demonstrate that what we have at Mirage is something that's going to combine tons and grain, right? Something that really gets us excited and shows the potential of what we're trying to do here.
I'd like to switch gears for a second. It seems like Canadians are way behind when it comes to mining investment. The Australians seem to get lithium. You completed a recent investor tour in Europe. What's been the reception been like for Brunswick, and what are overseas investors saying about James Bay, not only as a jurisdiction, but the potential of Brunswick as an investment into the future?
Look, there's no two ways around it that as it comes to lithium, the James Bay is going to be one of the most important areas globally speaking. I think it's really interesting what's happening to see such major investments. Canada was a mining powerhouse, and on the base metal side, major copper, major zinc, major nickel producer. And I don't want to lie, we kind of forgot about that. We kind of forgot parts of our mining heritage. We focused a lot on gold, and a lot of wealth was generated on gold, but the true Canadian mining wealth came from base metals. And when I look at the potential and I look at the discoveries that we're making on the lithium side in Canada and saying, wow, we're making tier 1 globally significant discoveries in Canada, my God, it's been decades. It's been, 40, 50, 70, 80 years since assets of globally significant assets have been discovered in Canada, and we're doing them in lithium. And when I think about the European Union, when I think about the US, they all look to Canada to supply them with the lithium that they need for decarbonization. So yeah, to go back to that marketing tour that I did in Europe, they look at Canada and say, wow, you guys are blessed. The James Bay area is absolutely endowed in lithium and has the potential, given years, just like Mirage, given time and years, to be something that is going to leave a mark across the entire world in a positive way. People are going to think, oh yeah, I know where the lithium comes from. A lot of pushback often on commodities is, oh, well, the cobalt in your car comes from, a dangerous mine in the DRC. But to be able to say, oh, well, the lithium comes from, a ESG positive mine in Canada, that goes a long way towards, repatriating, but also bringing mining into the 21st century.
Mhm.
So I view it in a very positive fashion, and investors around the world view it in a very positive fashion. And there's quite a lot of countries, frankly, are jealous of what we have in Canada, are jealous of what we have in Quebec, and are jealous of what's happening in the James Bay.
And that leads nicely to a couple of next points. So we're kind of hitting this critical point when it comes to security of supply for critical metals. The US has announced they're taking away rebates from EVs made with Chinese-made batteries. And Ottawa is expected to announce that all new vehicles sold within Canada must be fully electric by 2035. I'd like to get your take on how these initiatives will impact the need for a domestic supply of lithium, and what is the trickle up or trickle down effect as it relates to mining, processing, and manufacturing battery metals in Canada?
Oh, absolutely. You see it happen right now. More and more news, whether it's from the New York Times, whether it's from local newspapers, they all look at this and say, great, these investments are happening downstream, right, on the processing side. What's happening upstream? What's happening on the actual mining of those commodities? And that's where, again, there's a lot of interest. You saw Albemarle invest in Patriot for a reason, because they want to secure that North American supply chain. We've seen investment announcement after investment announcement happening all along the eastern seaboard, from Quebec all the way down to Tennessee. And those are going to require, quote unquote, local commodity production, local lithium production. And that's the key thing that people forget. Decarbonization, it's great, but it's sort of working along this new trend called deglobalization that actually has a huge impact for mining. Historically, all commodities went to China. And so, a country like Australia obviously stood to benefit right off the bat, feeding the lithium into China to be made into batteries that are then resold the world over. Now that you're putting that supply chain, that manufacturing chain into North America or into Europe, they need their own local supply. You're not going to ship lithium spodumene concentrate all the way from Australia into Canada to make any sense. You're going to need a local source. And that's why Canadian production of lithium is going to be so important here. And that's why it's so important to have strong political support across the board. And we definitely see it. We absolutely see it. And it's going to be something that'll be very, very key for us to achieve any decarbonization objective. I think I saw a headline a few days ago, in Quebec or in Canada, I can't remember which one of the two, we've now hit, 25% of all new cars sold are electric, are fully electric. That's an astounding number to be hitting, right? And it speaks, there's still a lot to do. And it speaks to that, demand, that screaming demand that's happening, that's going to be there for projects like Corvette, projects like Adina, and projects hopefully like Mirage down the line here.
I don't want to keep you much longer, but was there anything else you'd like to share on the Mirage project as we wrap up the interview?
Oh, look, for us, Mirage has the potential of being something quite significant. Just what we've done in the first 5,000 meters is already astounding. The way the team have uncovered, multiple pegmatites, the way we keep hitting high grade, we keep seeing good widths. That's exactly what you want to be building as a foundation. And I'm really looking forward to 2024 and start building the house and start building the potential at Mirage. And it's going to be an absolutely fun year for Brunswick and its shareholders.
Now, we didn't have much time to discuss the Elron or Anatakau main project. Is there anything you can tease out on either of those as we head into 2024?
Look, we're going to have lots more to talk about on that front. We haven't forgotten there. We still have more prospecting to do. You know, that's what makes it so fun in Brunswick. You know, we allow ourselves to capture so much of the lithium market, so much of the exploration potential that allows us that flexibility. You know, we spent a whole, half hour talking about Mirage, and to your point, we didn't even touch on what we have at Elron, which is another exciting target, you know, to see such a nice exposed pegmatite, lots of potential to expand there. Yeah, absolutely, we'll drill it. To make that Anais discovery, we still have much more prospecting to do on Anatakau, where the Anais sits. It's going to lead to something else there. It's going to lead to potentially another drill program. So it's about delivering so much to our investors and giving them the opportunity to be in something that's quite special, you know, to have a single company control so many, you know, great assets and to still have more assets to come down, more prospecting to be done. That's pretty rare. It's pretty unique.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Look, I think we've given a good run here, but like I said, 2024, it's going to be about the drill bit. And I'm just really, really excited to be back out there. We've, you know, got ourselves all sorted. We've got the camps ready to go here to expand on the program. And, you know, I look forward to having a similar interview at the end of 2024. Mm-hmm. We look back and say, like, geez, we really did go at it. And we put like 5 drill rigs on it, ended up doing like, you know, 40, 50,000 meters. That'd be fantastic. That'd be my dream. And I'm sure hopeful we get there.
Well, Killian, I want to thank you for sharing the latest results on the Mirage project with my viewers. I am the belief that Brunswick will start off the new year with a bang, and I expect a lot of activity throughout the year. Not only in the Mirage, but I think we'll see some great developments happening at Elron and Anatakau Main. And who knows, maybe a sleeper project too that we don't know about. So I'd like to wish you, the Brunswick team and their families, as well the viewers, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Likewise to you. Always a pleasure to be here.
This is the Junior Explorer signing off.